and 2. Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. We are here with our good friend and co-host, Jeff Blanchard, or Double O Blanchard as we like to call him.
Yes.
How you doing today, Jeff?
Good, thank you. Yes, show 129. So
is it 129?
Few
129.
false starts, haven't we, in the past few weeks where we was going to do it, then we couldn't, and then we were. So
yeah, I've had some work issues. I think you had some work things that you had to do, and then what happened? Oh, last week I think we had problems getting the audio going. We were totally down. And you wouldn't believe how stupid that problem was. But anyway.
It's always the simplest, though, isn't it? You go through the most complicated thing.
Everything was disconnected. Everything was reconnected. And it still wouldn't work. And then I looked and I went, wait. And there was an output gain knob that I've never, ever touched on that audio box.
Mm-hmm.
And when I brought it up, it went, hi, I can hear you now. I went,
oh.
All because of mostly that knob. One knob.
It was like the old Jaguar service one. There was this old story about this fella bought this very expensive Jaguar and there was this noise and rattle in it. And they took everything to pieces, did all sorts of things, couldn't find it. He said, I paid a fortune for it, you can't have this rattle in it. And it turned out the kid had put a marble in the back ashtray. Said, but there was this rattle that took all the things that, because I had to find, where is it? What is it? It's in the walls. They took all the paneling off, and that's
funny.
Somebody put a marble in, the marbles in the back ashtray. So I thought
and with that, here's our intro. And we are back, and in the top position over there is our guest today, Jeffrey K. Holbrook, who's also the co-host with Jeff. So we have Jeff and Jeff today, or Jeff and Joff, or Joffrey and Jeffrey. I don't know. It's we've got Blanchard and Holbrook today, and he is the co-host with Jeff. They do a show every week called The Weekly Catch-Up, appropriately called that. And how you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing well. Like you say, you were talking about that problem that you had as far as your volume and stuff goes. We had a family singing group whenever I was growing up for about 20 years, and one time I was the bass player and plugged everything in with that and got everything going, and I couldn't get any power out of my amplifier, and so we're playing, and my oldest brother, who's the electronics technician, comes over and he looks around the back of it, takes the cord, plugs it in the wall, and says basic troubleshooting.
So what was the name of your singing group?
You think you've got everything down, and it's always like Jeff says, it's always that simple thing that you just didn't think of today.
So what was the name of your singing group?
Oh, it was a family Christian singing group. We were the Holbrook family, or the Holbrooks, 5 boys all playing different instruments. And like you say, we traveled around, obviously a lot in West Virginia, Tennessee, even sang in Florida. Like you say, we never were trying to go professional or anything, but it was a ministry, it was a family ministry. And then we all grew up, started going to college, moving out of state, working different shifts, and it just all busted up at once after about 20 years.
Now you realize if you had called yourselves the Von Holbrook Singers, you'd be rich. You'd be rich and famous. Von Holbrook. Yeah.
We probably would have been richer maybe over in Germany or Austria.
Yeah, the Von Holbrooks, yes.
With a bomb on the front of us. It worked out that way.
But, yeah, so it's no sound of music, though, but close enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you say, we had all of us playing different instruments: piano, lead, bass, drums, even we had keyboards. We were told we were the first group to travel live with a synthesizer keyboard, and this was in the late 70s.
That actually sounds like you guys had fun.
And so, and then we also had like some brass, some trumpets, and different things going on too. So, yeah, it was a whole lot of fun.
And can you imagine the first hit song, "The Hills Are Alive" with the sound from the Ozarks?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, let's say we'd have to go a little further south for the Ozarks, but that would be funny. I think we're actually in the Appalachians up here.
That's okay.
That's like
true.
You say, we could go sing down there too. Well, actually, if we did a song from down there, we probably would get a lot of appointments down there, probably.
That's true.
Don't also everybody say it once anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say when you have three people, it's a different dynamic, isn't it, Jeff?
Who's going to speak next?
One of the things I would like to say that we are concerned about is what's happening down in Florida, if it's all right to bring that up.
Yep.
My mother actually lives in Sarasota. My brother lives there too, and that's about an hour below Tampa. And they're expecting for the first time in more than 50 years for the track to take it right straight up the West Coast. So my mother, she's on oxygen, and so they're worried about the power going out and the concentrator not working. And so she's got, extra bottles, of oxygen. And my brother, who lives in the area but lives further inland, is coming to get her and take her to his house, and they're going to weather the storm over there. So it's a literal weathering of the storm, So anyway.
Yeah, and if you've ever been in a hurricane, they're scary. You don't know what's going to happen sometimes. So, hey, our thoughts and prayers go out to your mom, and we've got other friends and customers out in that same area. We've got a busy thought schedule, if you will, just to think of everyone. And I hope everybody's safe, and I hope that, in particular, your mom and family just weather it well.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
I really do.
So, Rick, what have you bought lately?
Really nothing. I bought a couple of things. I bought a Yamaha portable drum kit, which is just only about maybe yay big. It's about maybe 2.5, 3 feet wide by about maybe 2 feet the other way. It goes on a standard cymbal stand, and it does a really good job. It's actually not bad. I'm using it to practice. I haven't played drums in so long. I don't know if I'm hitting myself with the drums. It's not very good, but it's fun.
I saw your comment on Elaine chat the other day about that famous drummer you talked to about.
Yes.
After playing drums for 40 odd years, and says he practices 40 minutes every day.
Yeah.
And so what did he just the basics, like you said?
Oh, he literally. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who's one of the best drummers. He played for a lot of groups, a lot of them, some very famous ones. And he's not only a drummer, but he's a musician in terms of he understands how the drum frequencies affect the bass, the guitar, everything else. And so they bring him in not only just to hear his drumming, but to see how he kind of equalizes everything in that mix. And he says, every day I practice 30 to 40 minutes. And the guy goes, what will you practice? What do you practice? He goes, da 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 da. And everything's basic. And he says, if you lose that, you have nothing. and I was fascinated by that.
I must admit, it was great to see something like that, because it's, I've been playing keyboards for years and years, not very successfully, not very good, but now in my later years, now I've started up again with my new love with the Korg, my Korg synthesizer, but the Kronos. But one of the things I've just learned recently is exactly like that. Just stick to the basics.
Yeah.
And like do your scales and your arpeggios. Do that every time, no matter how boring. And you think, when do you finish that? Well, no, you don't. And I've been doing that for nearly a year now, just doing it. And I think it's still basic, boring stuff. But I'm amazed at how better my playing's getting. And I thought, gee, I wish I'd did that when I first started. I'd be really good by now. But
because that's what's
it's amazing how it does.
It lets you get good at everything. From the simple comes all of the complex. And if the simple is second source, second nature, everything else just kind of falls easily into place. And when you hear a master drummer, somebody who's made a lot of money doing this, and he's been playing for over 40 years, and he and you just go, wow. He really has his head on straight. And
well, what I'm getting out of this is that Jeff needs to do chopsticks every day.
Oh no!
and you will be a professional in no time.
Well, I must admit, though, with doing the scales, there's some things I started learning, because playing keyboard, I just did a normal organ keyboard, which is totally different to piano. And so I've started just a year ago. I thought I'm doing proper piano. And I've never done anything like that, and I'm just amazed at how well I've come along. And it's just between this, doing scales and arpeggios, because you've got 12 notes. But if you're doing all combinations, get your fingering right. Well, that's all it is. And when I started, I tried one piece. I thought, I'll never get this. I can't get that coordination. And just now with doing scales and that, I thought, hang on, I'm doing it. And you just don't realise you go back to do that song again, and it just makes it easier. But I've found the hardest bit is I know how to play something, but I'm playing it all with the wrong keys. It's like when you learn on the keyboard touch typing. When you first start, you know the keys when you're pressing them, and you can do it quite efficiently, but you could do it much better if you stopped looking at your fingers and you did it with the right keys. But when you do that, it takes you probably a year just and going extremely slow before you do it, but it pays off because you don't have to look anymore. And it's the same thing with the keyboard. You learn the right fingers and they'll go there, but if you learn the wrong one, they go, when you hit that, it's the wrong note. Like you do when you type, you hit the wrong key. So it's all like that. But what I'm threatening to do, Rick, I'm threatening to do a recording one day with me playing something and doing it. And I don't know whether I'll share it with everybody, but I'll share it with you two. I'll tell you.
Well, no, like I say, whenever you record some things, if you get me some WAV files, I'll release them on my podcasting channel.
That's what I'm afraid of. But I might get a bit more practice. But then again, I can record and edit it and make it sound really good and take out all the mistakes, can't I? So.
Yep. No, Jeff.
It has to be raw.
Jeff K reminded me of something. We are going to be having, as of next week, audio podcasts only, audio-only podcasts. So we will be taking these shows and taking the audio track out of them and putting them up on iTunes, which will then go on Pocket Cast as well as Podbean. So, and we're storing the content on Podbean.
And that's excellent.
I have been looking forward to this a lot because I don't always have time to sit down and watch a video, but I have a 40-minute commute. And so as soon as you said that, I was really excited because I'll be able to subscribe directly on my phone and then listen to the shows as I go back and forth from work. I've been totally ready for the audio. That's going to be great.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I've been really waiting for that because the same as Jeff, there's a lot of times I love to watch, like I had time last night, caught up with Elaine chat, but other times you just put it on there, listen to it in the car, because out of probably all the shows we've done, nearly all of them, it might be about half an hour worth of stuff that you had to see it on the screen. But other than that, it's usually all, you can listen to it and you can get the gist of everything from listening to it. But it's, and we can go, I might go back to the old, you're listing all of them, Rick, all the old ones as well?
I think we're only going to start with the newer ones, only because there's so many. Nobody really goes back that much on podcasts. So we're going to stick with probably the last week or two and moving forward.
I just thought we might go back to ones where we say, hey, we've just got this new thing called the internet.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And I thought, because, go back to the olden days, but then I suppose if it was that old, nobody podcasted then.
That's true.
No, it started in 2004 was when it was invented, and they really kicked in 2005. So, that was about when it all started. I'm kind of sad I missed that because I kind of got a late start. But yeah, it's a good thing. It's a lot of fun. I've been doing it for about 3 years, and it's I'm really looking forward to all this coming out on your feed. And like you say, I'm just going to subscribe and be ready to go and be ready to listen. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and we're going to aggregate. You asked yesterday, and we are aggregating all the shows into the same feed, probably because it's hard to really, it's more work and we don't have a lot of time to make each individual show have its own feeds and this and that. So we said, let's just do it all on one, and people can just choose the ones they want and skip the other ones.
Yeah, that's possible. There is a way, again, it's more complicated, but there is a way to have one hosting account and still have separate feeds for each one. If you have a WordPress website, you can use something called PowerPress, and it's put out by Raw Voice Blueberry. And you can actually take one feed, but then aggregate all of those into their own feeds on the website itself and do it that way. But again, I never did that. I always worked with Libsyn, Liberated Syndication. And I've had everything I've been doing mostly on one feed. So, but usually sequential rather than all at the same time.
Well, we decided to go with Podbean because Podbean had for $9 a month unlimited audio. And we went, Libsyn was quite a bit more. And
I'm
Podbean for $9 was full unlimited audio. Plus, they send to iTunes and about 30 other places if you wanted to.
Right. Yeah, they Libsyn does have destinations. Whenever mine publishes, it publishes to Tumblr, to my WordPress website, to I'm trying to think where all else. Facebook sends a tweet, does all that stuff, and I'm sure Podbean's doing that too.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's very, very nice to have all that where you publish in one place and it just goes everywhere. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as I said, but with that one, it's such good value though, Rick, for $9 a month, isn't it? For just that
unlimited,
good value because of
unlimited hosting, and so we figured that's good. And our shows are probably about, in audio, it's probably going to be 200 to 300 megabytes. So that shouldn't be bad.
So how do we get when that's done? There's a link that comes out that when will it be available?
Probably next week, early next week. I think we're going to start it probably Monday. We'll start sending them out. Do we have our iTunes URL yet? Not yet. We're still waiting for the iTunes URL. We may have to follow up with them on Monday and see where that is. Usually they're pretty quick, but it's been about a week now. We haven't gotten it yet.
And what we should do when you first get them up, Rick, we should do a show which says, "Now look at this picture. Isn't that amazing? It's fantastic."
Well, you get after your podcast for a while, you get used to describing what you're talking about, as opposed to saying, "Well, look at this," and then there's silence.
Yes.
No. You say, "Look at this. It's a picture of my dog that is doing this and this and this." And so you just kind of get used to the verbal descriptions of it. And since I came from audio, I found that easier. I was a guest on another audio podcast, and so I've gotten used to where I've been recording the weekly catch up here at the house, and the audio, I've just been recording a separate audio track for that. Anyway, my friend, I was on his podcast, and he said something, and I looked at him and nodded. And he goes, "Well, you're going to have to actually," because he was still talking. And the reason why I did that is because whenever on the recording I'm doing here, it cuts off Jeff's audio when I speak.
Oh.
So it'll cut out. So I've learned to nod on the video show so that I don't cut off his audio while I'm doing it. It's just a slight drop out, and then it comes back. But I've learned to do that. And it doesn't do it on the video stream, but it does it here locally because of Skype, the way it is. It just cuts him off when I start to talk.
So that would be really terrible if you got a boring guest and you're and every time you nod off, it cuts him off. That would be horrible.
Well, I will try my absolute best to not be boring if ever I can.
Now, Rick, I've got a technical question. Well, not so much the technical, but on the weekly catch-up 2 weeks ago, I told Jeff I've just bought myself an 8 terabyte drive for my Drobo. And I'm still too scared to put it in. So I'm, too scared to take one out and put it in, because they say it's so easy. You just flip one out and put it in. But I'm just hesitating. Any hints?
Well, the only problem is that with one 8 terabyte drive, it's an 8.1, right? One drive is 8 terabytes.
Yeah.
And then all your other drives are 3, right?
Yeah, I'm taking one out, but that's fine. You can still do that.
You can, but it's a little trickier because now that 8 terabyte is almost as much as your other 3 drives.
Yeah.
So you may run out, you may have to go to that 2 drive configuration for backup, because 1 may not be enough.
Well, no, because I just said, but when I do that, because I'm not to capacity yet, that's what I'm doing before, because I want to replace my 3 terabyte drives before they fail. Because they've been there years, and then I can use them as just sort of normal backup. But because I was looking at there, they said yes, you can do it with any combination, and they show you what happens when you put the other combination in there. But I'm still a bit scared of it replacing anything. I just don't know what. Just flip one out and put it in.
Yeah, but it's a little tricky. It still has to rebuild. It has to do quite a bit of work.
Yeah,
it'll do it automatically, but that's a huge difference in drives. That would be my concern. It'll handle it, but I'm not sure how well it'll handle the backup part of it. In other words, the checksum drive, if you will, that does its backups or redundancy. That's going to be a little tricky. I think you need to get 4 more of those.
It's not going to increase. It won't increase my space by a huge amount, because it is spreading the backup across all of them, including that one.
I think you actually need to buy 4 more of the 8s, and you should be fine.
Oh,
yeah,
perfect.
just what about $400 a piece? Yes, that's a good news. That's right. Yeah.
Hey, maybe you could rent maybe you could rent the dogs out, Hudson too, maybe as a people walker.
That's right. Yeah, you do it the other way around.
They would pay to walk your dog, and then you could eventually get enough to buy all the drives.
Well, that's right. So, but that is the aim, though. I thought, because I want to slowly replace all of the drives with bigger capacities as they get cheaper. Because, like Rick knows, they only have a certain amount of life, and then they all of a sudden stop.
And it's about 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I'm getting to that. So that's what I thought before it is. I want to, and then if I replace one now and another one in 6 months' time, when the next 5 years, it won't all fail at once, because I'm a bit scared they might all start when they all reach 5 years at the same time.
Well, I had a different problem with my Drobo. The drives are fine. The Drobo fan went out. You can't replace the fan, and you have to buy a new case for $600. I was really unhappy with that. So I love Drobo and hate them. It's gotten to the point of love-hate, sort of like with my Mac. I love-hate them, more hate than love. But it's like, why do you do this? I mean, why can't you replace the stupid fan? And they put the cheapest piece of junk fans in those things that make noise all the time and vibrate and just... so that's my gripe about Drobo. Now some new things that came out. They're Vegas Pro 15 just came out, the video editing software. And it looks really good. They cleaned it up. They made the interface much more modern, if you will, because they were really suffering from old NT-itis.
Really old before.
The new one looks beautiful. You have 4 themes, and the dark theme is what everybody's using. It looks really cool. And they've added more functionality, more speed. So I think Vegas is trying to make a comeback for real now. So this will be... I just got my upgrade yesterday, and I haven't used it in a long time, so... I'm going to get used to it this weekend again and play around with it. In the old days, that was the easiest, best, fastest editor to use. And now they've got to compete with Resolve, DaVinci Resolve 14, with and you can't beat DaVinci Resolve on money. It's free.
No, free, and I made it such a good value, such a good package as well for the you can do so many things with it for a free package.
I know.
I still can't get over that.
It's amazing, but they're smart, because that drags you into wanting to buy their cameras, which I've never done, but that's something that they try to get you to do. It's good marketing for them. It doesn't cost them that much to do what they're doing, and the whole industry knows who they are, so that's probably not a bad idea. There are. Fujifilm just announced that, I think in November, their autofocus system will be twice as fast on existing cameras like the XT2 and the XT Pro and all that. They're going to have twice as fast autofocus for continuous autofocus for moving objects. That's pretty fast, because theirs is fast already. Twice as fast means Sony and Panasonic are going to have to catch up. So it's going to be an interesting thing. I may wait to sell it till... see what that does.
Well, did you see also, Rick, they've announced the release date for the GH5 version 2 software?
It's going to be, October?
No, late September.
Oh, September, okay.
So shortly it should be, by the looks of it, but that's supposed to be resolving a lot of the issues that they did have with auto-focusing, so they say, and quite a few things like PC tethering from the USB-C connection, which you couldn't do before. So you can plug it in and use it sort of through a laptop and do straight into it and control it from that.
Interesting. That should be good. Yeah, that was due. End of summer, so a little bit late.
I still find it interesting that it's been so long since I've been into photography, and I plan on getting into it again as I get closer to retirement. But the idea that the camera is not just the camera, and that you can just do a firmware update and just change a bunch of things about the way the camera operates, I find that fascinating. And I understand what's going on, but still, it's just kind of like, well, who would have thought of that?
But you know what, Jeffrey? When you have a Canon, that doesn't happen ever almost. They don't do firmware upgrades. They say, you bought it, you're screwed, good luck.
I was a Canon man. I gave it to my daughter when she was in college, so I don't have a real camera right now, but that may be something I'll have to consider when I get another one, and go to a different brand,
because
maybe.
Canon, unfortunately, doesn't do it. They don't care about you once you buy it. It's like, okay, you're done. You don't get any upgrades. Some of their biggest cameras have not had one upgrade. Not one. Sometimes they'll do it when they really have a bad bug, but other than that, it's like Canon, no, screw you. That's what they think. It's a shame. Sony's not as bad, but they have other issues. Panasonic's actually good. They keep things up. Fuji, from what I hear, they'll even update cameras that are 10 years old. Now that's service. It's too bad I don't like them that much, but people love them. That's just me. So it is kind of amazing what some of these people are doing, and I'm just hoping that all that competition brings all the ships up, and they all start realizing that service is kind of important, and that you really shouldn't try to screw your customers over by competing against yourself, because that makes people ticked off. It's not a smart marketing strategy.
I think they feel that they've got you once you buy it and you buy a couple of lenses, that you're not ready to jump ship to a new a new system, because then you've got to buy all the lenses again and you've got to do all that. So they think they have you hostage. But there's nothing like getting a company's attention like everybody going in droves to somewhere they can get better service.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what Panasonic did with the GH4 and the GH5. They came out with a camera that's really almost a camcorder that shoots better 4K video and maybe soon 6K than the big people do at $10,000, $20,000 cameras.
Wow.
So you look at that and go, wow, why should I buy that $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 camera when this little $2,000 thing can do the same thing? It's a tough one.
But the thing is, which is difficult these days, is where, and I think this is where Canon's still living in the past. They're still living in the times where people used to buy a camera and if they liked it, that's fine. If they didn't, they told a friend and they might tell somebody else. But these days, everybody gets on the internet and says this story, says whether it's good or bad, and everybody knows. But these days, it's not just all the camera that you're buying. You're buying the company brand and the perception, and then what else can you get from that company? But they're still, I think, in that passage, like Jeff said, you get the camera, you're sort of stuck with it, and that's the end of it. But these days, it's you just can't do it, because, like you said, you might be stuck with a Canon camera now. You might not be able to get rid of it. But it's not just you and me who know about it. It's tens of thousands of people that know about it, and then they think, why are we losing a bit of market share? Well, other people are doing things a lot differently.
It's like trying to stop a wave once it's already breaking on the shore. Oops, a little late. So it's going to take you a little while to get that water back out in the ocean if you lose it on your marketing thing and you didn't pay attention for 2 years, and all of a sudden it's gone, and then you've got to try to figure out how to get it back, and it's harder to stop that momentum when it's moving away from you.
Well, it's actually interesting that you bring that up, because Canon has perfected the ability to stop any enthusiasm like a wave. Total stops it at its core. Right when you're about to buy it, they go, and here's what the new features are, and you stop. That's it. End of purchase. And they're good at that. They can kill you before you even buy the thing. So they did that with the 5D Mark IV, which everybody was waiting for. Like I had a pre-order, and then when I saw what they were doing with video, I got rid of my pre-order and went back to other cameras. And I went, it could have been a big seller.
It does amaze you that you just, like, I'm no super duper expert in cameras, but I would know if I'm going to develop a camera out there in the market where everybody wants to film things. You produce a camera that does a file that's 50 times bigger than anybody else's biggest one would be. And I thought, why would you do that?
No, it does look good.
Because it was like 40 gigabytes for a few minutes or something rather of...
Well, 1 hour of video, of 4K video on the 5D Mark IV is 255 gigabytes.
Yeah, it's horrendous. I can't even think that high it would be, but who would want to do that?
And they did some other stupid things. They gave you two card slots, one for a compact flash 1 slot, compact flash 1, which has been gone forever. We have compact flash 2 out there, and an SD card slot, but not a fast one, just standard SD, XE, no more than that. And you just go, wow. So you have 255 gigabytes. Go find a 255 gigabyte compact flash card. There aren't that many of them. And the ones there are, the compact flash 1, they're expensive and crummy. And then SD cards, they won't let you put your video on SD unless it's a 1080p. So in essence, you're kind of stuck either which way you look at it. And people are just going, why? I mean, why did you do this? And Canon says, why not? We can.
And have they fixed up the 5D with the newer version with that video? Or
no, not at all. There were rumors, but nothing new.
No, because because everybody wants video these days. No matter, like you say, you buy the camera just for stills, but you've still got to have a decent video one. And if you're not concentrating on video, well, why make it a 1080p just with a small format? At least that would be better than a huge file on that other one. So.
Also, one thing that's sort of funny is Canon marketing basically says everybody out there has 4K. Every little camera, big camera, phone. But we don't care. We give you 1080p. Take that. And people go, wow, we got 1080p. It's nice 1080p, but everybody else is doing 4K. They don't care. They go, it doesn't matter. We're Canon. And Canon lost 40, I think I read somewhere it was 40% of the sales have dropped. And I guess that's not enough to get their attention. Hello, Canon, you just lost almost 50% of your sales. Isn't that great? Well, we do 1080p.
Canon, though, probably has other divisions that maybe is their bread and butter, as you call it, and maybe they really don't care so much about the camera side of things anymore.
They may not.
It's a pity. I know we're all criticizing it, but I still love the cameras.
Yeah, I agree. They're ergonomically very good.
I thought if they did like the things that they've done, like in that, remember from the 60, 70, and 80D, that flip-out viewfinder.
I know.
Why isn't it on all the more expensive models? But that's a fantastic thing, and a few have copied it, like the Panasonic do it on a lot of theirs, which is a feature that nearly everybody wants, so you can flip the screen around and don't scratch your LCD display. But they don't have it in their $5,000 version, but they'll have it on their $1,500 version.
And almost everybody has touch screens except them. They have some, but not very many, and you just go, and then you can't touch screen for everything. You have to, only certain actions can be touch screenable. So yeah, camera manufacturers are odd. It's like, and Nikon is going bankrupt, Canon's not doing well, and you just go, and they're not coming out with a ton of innovation. I mean, Nikon just came out with the D850, which looks impressive, but again, do you really want to put all your money into Nikon on what looks like a great camera? And you've got to invest a fortune, and then they go under. I mean, they may not, but they issued a letter of financial duress at the beginning of the year that was really not good. And they're not selling well, and they're really behind in tech also. So you just go, all right, well, interesting. So the camera vendors are getting their brains around cell phones.
Yeah, that's it. You would think they would be doing something that would really attract people. Say, buy this video camera and put something in it that makes it like put an LCD screen on the camera that you can see no matter what sunlight you're standing in. Because that's the thing. You can't do this on your cell phone, and they could show. Because people would buy that. Because that's one of the big things that people have a camera for. Because they can see through those viewfinders some of the time. But if you said have an LCD that you could see anywhere, and this whole Panasonic I've got, you could see that anywhere, but the newer ones you can't. It's crazy.
Okay, guys, here's what they need to do. They need to make a really large shoulder-mounted video camera that you can make phone calls on.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, let's go backwards here. My thing is there's going to be a complete philosophy shift for me, because back whenever I was doing photography, you were worried about exposures and making sure that you had everything right, because I started in film and then went into digital, but you were still concerned about light gathering and things like that. Now it just seems that whenever I come back into this, exposures are pretty much taken care of, but the only two things that you can't do with the cameras are composition, which you've got to have the eye for it, and how good you are in Photoshop. That seems to be the only two variables about the whole thing. I mean, anybody can just throw up a camera and take a picture, and it's a good exposure and everything's fine, again, when you're using the automatic settings. And you can get creative, obviously, with your shutter speeds and apertures and things, do creative photography. But, I mean, in general, the camera's handling the exposure thing. So, again, if you have an eye for it, that's still not good enough, because you can do a really nicely composed picture. But if you're not good in Photoshop or whatever software you're using, I'm sorry, you're out of the game, and nobody will pay any attention to your pictures, no matter how good they are, unless you can make them look HDR with Photoshop or something.
Well, it's interesting. You've heard of ED pills, right? And they have that for camera people now. It's called exposure dysfunction. when the moment's right, there goes your exposure. Done. It's.
But I did have a friend that showed me some pictures from somebody else, and they'd put them up, and they said they were horrible, hideous. Look how out of focus. Look how terrible they are. And I said, being fair to the person, I said, I think it's impossible for that amount of pictures for that person to take all of them out of focus. I said, with the camera technology, somebody's done something to the quality of them, putting them up somewhere, because I said they've taken so many pictures with, like Jeffrey was saying, with the cameras these days, it's nearly impossible to take an out of focus horrible picture. Yes, the composition might be wrong, but if you click off enough, you'll get some in focus, and that it's nearly impossible to make them all bad. Like the old days with the cameras, if you could flick off a whole 36 images and then not have everything dark and that, or you could do something like that. But in these modern ones, there's not anything that you could do to make, because you're looking at most of them through the viewfinder. You can't do that.
I disagree with you there. I've done it. I have personally done it, where I had 200 and something shots, of which every single one was blurry. And I was about to cut my wrist. Possibly, and it can be done. It took time. That was on a GH4. And it wasn't the fault of the GH4. It was my fault. I had a non-stabilized lens, a 40 millimeter non-stabilized lens. The camera's not stabilized, and I had my shutter speed at 1/60th of a second, not fast enough for what I was doing. And it was totally my fault, because I got to the booth and I immediately started taking shots. Stupid me. I didn't look to see. My exposure was perfect. My framing was good. The shutter was too slow, so almost every shot had a little bit of shake, and you could tell it was blurry. And I got back to the room. I looked. I went, I mean, it was just, it was one of those moments of photo suicide. It's like, I'm done. I will never take a picture again.
I was just going to say, you're showing you pictures and says, who's that? That's
right here.
Barack Obama and Leslie having a handshake. Yes, well, and that's all these famous people. Oh, yes, you see that.
It was really bad. But really, so yes, exposure is not that hard to set. And a lot of the cameras, if you go on auto exposure, are amazing. But shutter, if your shutter is wrong for that lens and for that camera combination, you will get, no matter how fast the camera is, and the GH4 was a very fast camera for shooting and focus, it would beep, but the minute I shot it, it would move it just enough to completely blur the picture out. I mean, some of them were almost usable, and the majority were just awful. And literally, I'm so glad nobody paid me for that, because it would have been a disaster. I wouldn't have, can't collect the money, would not collect it. But as it was one of those moments of, oh my gosh, I know better than this. What was I thinking or not? So it can happen.
You try to collect your check. So here's the images. I've done the job you wanted. Yeah, but Rick, yep, that's it. They're perfectly good shots.
Yeah, and just say it wasn't blurry. It was a time diffraction. It happens.
Yes, and I say, it was the time diffraction. Okay, and they think more like a wormhole or something.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Well, I've told Jeff this before, that the main difference between a professional photographer and an amateur, just a rank amateur, is the fact that the professional doesn't show all their pictures.
No, that's true.
There's a bunch of them that you didn't see that are just as bad as anybody else's.
That's funny. Well, hey guys, we are almost 50 minutes into this, so we are at the end of our time, and this was fun. Jeff, I'm glad you could join us today. It was last moment when I asked you, and you said, "Sure, got it, I'll be there." And Jeff, we hope he surprised you a little bit, because it's always fun to see friends.
Yes, it is. It's always nice, and the three of us together. I think that's the thing, is we have to cut it to a certain time, or else we'll just keep
we
going
go on forever.
And on. It's just the trouble with this, though. There's a few moments of quietness, because we all want to talk, but we don't want to talk over everybody, so we just stop and nobody talks. That's
and there's always a little bit of that, just certain lag with Skype. It's a half a second, but that's enough to get everybody going. and everybody freezes. So, hey, now you're going to we have also our new outro. So this is, wait, that's not it? That's it. Okay. We almost had on. Here's our new outro. You won't be able to hear it here, but if you go to the show, you'll hear it. It's pretty fringy. It's definitely sci-fi. We like it. Janessa helped me choose all the music for it, and we chose this one together, and we're both going, yeah, that's dark, it's evil, we like it. No, it's just different. So anyway, well, here we go. Thanks for watching the show, folks. And if you like it, subscribe. If you don't, subscribe anyway, because you need someone to hate. Yeah, that's important.
Check out this audio stuff
if you like to listen to something that annoys you,
on the go and enjoy it as you go.
That's right. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks, guys, for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we are over.